I was fortunate to grow up during the birth of the console and computer boom. I have owned many systems over the years as a child through my teens into adulthood. In this video I list my top 10 systems in order of impact they had on me, and which system was my favourite over this time period. I can remember, it was the late 70s and I was about 6 or 7, and my parents bought a grandstand Pong machine. The fact you could control something on the black and white television was just astounding at the time. It came with 4 games: tennis, football, squash and practice. Obviously all these games were just variants of Pong with a number of white lines for bats and a square that moved about on the screen for a ball. This collided with the said bats and the score recorded at the top. I can still hear the beep of the ball hitting the bats. This was the start of my fascination with consoles and computers. As you will see from the top 10 list, I was never really a big console person and leaned more to the computer side of the hobby, but the Nintendo Wii was definitely a fun machine to play. It was also the first Nintendo machine that I owned outside of my retro hobby. I can remember getting it for Christmas 2006 on its launch and loving the Wii Sports game that came bundled with it. All the family joined in playing bowling and tennis, and it did at the time, and still does today to a degree, feel like a different type of gameplay because of the interaction via the Wiimotes. A lot of fun was had that Christmas and through the year, but unfortunately my dancing never improved even though I played Just Dance to death. Me and my brother had to share this game when we got it for Christmas in 1983. At the time I was 10 and I loved how the game looked like a mini arcade machine with its own joystick and fire button. The game itself was a typical invaders game with enemies coming down the screen in a 3D tunnel, which you had to shoot, but the added difficulty was that the more you used the laser, the hotter your turret got until it stopped working, at which point you had to wait for a few seconds for it to cool down. As we had to share the unit, we both had a set amount of time each to play it, usually around 30 minutes. As you can imagine, many arguments ensued, and I can remember the system being red hot and the smell of melting plastic in the air due to the amount of time it had been played. My girlfriend at the time, and now wife, managed to get me an Xbox 360 for Christmas in 2005, which was no mean feat in itself, as they were like the proverbial rocking horse poop, and out of stock everywhere. I can remember being impressed by the graphics and menu system it used, as this was something fairly new to me at the time. At this point in time the leap between generations was starting to slow and the wow factor of new systems starting to wane and be less noticeable, but that said I still enjoyed playing Gotham Racing 3. Some of you may be surprised that this entry is quite low in the list, but I did not get given a Spectrum until really late in its life around 1990, and then it was a 48K Plus version. I was gifted it from a family member who had upgraded to a Plus 2. It did not really have a major impact on me from a computer standpoint, but I was still impressed with what this little machine could do. Hard driving was outstanding for the machine's capability, and I can remember seeing the 3D replays and thinking, how is it doing this? Even to this day I think the Spectrum's arcade ports may not have been the prettiest to look at, but were much closer to it in gameplay to the real thing than the other 8-bit systems in the UK, especially the computer systems. Terra Cresta on the Spectrum is still my favourite 8-bit system port. I have talked about this machine on my live streams before. This was the first home computer we as a family ever owned. I can remember the day it was bought from a local independent electrical store for the knockdown price of £99. The fact that it also included a screwdriver and plug in the box was crazy at the time, as most devices didn't. This computer was played on for hours and hours by both me and my brother. It was where I learned to program in BASIC. Even today I can remember the games we had like Turmoil, Formula 1 Simulator, Mr. One's Loopy Laundry, Seeking and many more. I also have vivid memories of going to the nearby town's market on a Saturday on the bus to look at what new games had been released. I have such happy memories of this machine, even when the keyboard started to fail and my dad sprayed WD-40 on the keys to see if it would make them work better. It didn't, but when the system got warm from use it would stink the room out. The first ever PC I had was a second-hand 286 CGA green screen monster that I acquired in 1992. I can remember playing the demo of MiG-29 Super Fulcrum from the PC format issue 1 5¼ inch cover disc. but was not really that enthralled by it due to me owning another computer at the time which seemed much more colourful, though maybe a little more sluggish. It was not until 1994 that I bought an Olivetti 486 SX25 from Radio Rentals. The reason being was my friend had a PC, and I was amazed at how smooth 4D sports driving, or stunts as it was called on the PC, was. Ever since then I have been an avid PC user for gaming, emulation, and of course applications. I have lived through the birth of the 3D cards, my first being a PowerVR card, closely followed by a Voodoo 2 3DFX. I have owned Pentium 3s, 4s, duo cores, quad cores, i5s, i7s, laptops, base units, you name it. I've also used it for VR in recent years. The PC is my go-to machine for most things, including emulating my top 2 favourite systems. I can remember the evening so vividly. My older cousin coming up to my parents' house and bringing with him his Breadbin C64. Setting it up on the big TV as we called it, which was colour and in the living room, probably no bigger than 24 inch ironically. I can remember playing Pac-Man and Hunchback and totally being mesmerised by it. The year was 1983 and I knew from that moment I wanted a C64, but unfortunately due to the high cost of the system, around £399, we got a Toshiba MSX which was £99, which I was grateful for at the time, don't get me wrong, but it was no C64. Move forwards a few years to 1988 and with the reduction in price I was bought a C64C for £149, the Hollywood Stroke TV show pack. I literally played this computer to death with such classic games as Outrun, Paperboy, Rambo, Platoon and so many more. Over the years I upgraded it with a 1541 floppy drive and also fast load cartridges etc. The C64 holds such a very fond place in my heart and would have been my favourite computer of all time had it not been for the launch of the next in the line of this company's computers. I am sure by now you know that this was coming, as I have made no secret of this on my channel. I have called it a series of computers so it encompasses both the A500 Plus, which was my first Amiga, which I got for Christmas 1991, the Cartoon Classics pack to be precise, and also the A1200 Desktop Dynamite pack which I got a few years later. The Amiga for me at the time was an amazing piece of kit. It allowed me to play arcade quality games, a big leap from the 8-bit systems, but also use my creativity for things like drawing on Deluxe Paint 3 to making music on Octamed and Soundtracker. It was an all-round computer. The GUI of Workbench introduced me to a Windows-like interface which served me well moving onto the PC. The hundreds of classic games from Lotus 2, Sensi Soccer, Cannon Fodder, North and South, etc, the list goes on and on. The infamous sounds of the bong of Xcopy once a disc had finished duplicating still lives in my memory from back in the day. The robotic speech of Say on Workbench. So many memories. For me, the Amiga without a shadow of a doubt is my favourite system of all time, especially the A500 Plus. The irony of the Amiga though was, it was also probably the most disappointing memory when I got the A1200, especially when my friends were starting to get PCs with the same games and which were much smoother and more colourful. It was at this point I knew the era of the Amiga was coming to an end, which made me feel sad, but I was glad that I had lived through it and experienced that feeling of seeing it progress firsthand, a feeling which I still feel but in a more nostalgic way now, especially when I play games on the Amiga emulator. As a homage to me getting my first Amiga, I'm doing a special Christmas livestream on Wednesday the 21st of December at 9 o'clock, where I will recreate playing those games I played on Christmas morning all those years ago. I hope you enjoyed this jaunt down memory lane. Is your list similar? Maybe there are totally different systems you hold dear. Please comment below, and if you enjoyed, then please like and subscribe for more content. And for daily updates, why not nip over to my Facebook page and share your memories. Links are in the information below. Thank you for watching.